Thank you so much for joining me. Do you want to start? We'll start with you, Barney. A bit of an introduction, who you are, company that you're from.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Barney Willis. I look after global partnerships at Pattern. Pattern is the world's biggest seller, 3P seller on Amazon. So we're a sort of like tech-led distribution for Amazon brands. We actually buy their products and then we actually sell it on Amazon better than they could ever hope to do themselves.
Hi, I'm Lucy. I founded what has now become a very viral TikTok hair care brand called Hair Syrup. Yeah, that's me pretty much.
Hi everyone, I'm Shanella. I'm the head of e-business for La Prairie, and I also have a tech startup which I'm fundraising for and beauty. Nice to meet you.
Lucy, before we get started, just give everyone a bit of an intro on the viral moment.
Oh no, we actually accidentally, this is literally what happened yesterday. We were filming a TikTok on the train and we posted it and didn't actually realize that in the background there was a man hitting his head on the roof. No, he just walked into it and we didn't realize. And then it has got how many views? 500,000. That was unintentional. This happens all the time. We spend like an hour on content and it doesn't even pop off, and then that. So yeah. But our most recent load of viral content was I went on Dragon's Den in January and we had a bit of a PR extravaganza after it. So yeah, that's been the viral stuff recently.
And you've built a really strong and authentic community online. Like, what role has UGC and social engagement played in driving your ecom growth?
Well, my brand is a social media driven brand. I wouldn't have started. I actually started by accident, never really meant to start a business. And that was all driven through social media. Obviously, the growth has all come through social media. And we've got a huge community. We've got so much of our sales and revenue is just driven by authentic users of the product, experiencing amazing results with it, and then going and off their own back. They're not getting paid for it or anything. They just decide to make their own videos about it and then they get shared. And that's basically how I've grown, with no investment and very little capital. So
amazing. And Chanel, La Prairie is known for its heritage and prestige. So in a digital first world, how are you guys maintaining that sense of exclusivity whilst expanding in ecom?
So I see there's a lot of men in this room. Just to clarify, La Prairie is the most luxurious skincare brand in the world. We sell the cheapest product we sell is £80 of foam cleanser, and we just launched a moisturizer which is £1,550 for 50 kilolitres. We do pride ourselves in terms of everything being made in Switzerland. The R&D is very high intense, and a lot of R&D goes into the product. But we really don't think that we have competitors. So La Mer and Bada are our closest competitors, but for La Mer to keep up with us, they have to sell 2 jars when we just sell 1 pot of skin caviar. You might know us for skin caviar. We have caviar, precious metals, pure gold and platinum in the collections. So we are extremely high end. We're at the top of the pyramid in terms of luxury. So when it does come to scaling, it's a very slow, considered and demure process. We recently launched in Space NK last year, and it was 2 years of back and forth negotiations. And we just launched Cult Beauty this year as well. But for now, we have a very select distribution, and we are fine and happy to keep it that way. Our parent company, Beiersdorf, they're a German company that own Nivea, Eucerin, Elastoplast. So their bottom line is obviously mass volume. And our bottom line is to basically protect the brand at all costs. So very different strategy.
Really different. And Barney, how does Amazon influence today's modern retail landscape?
So this is the $1 million question for us, because I think, especially when you're working with really high-end brands in the beauty space in particular, a lot of beauty category brands in particular think, okay, I don't really want to be on Amazon. That's not really where we want to be. It's not where our customers are, where we want to associate. But the raw fact is that around 80% of the consumer base goes to Amazon. So one thing that we talk about at Pattern is if you're not already on Amazon or if you're not embracing Amazon, then Amazon will embrace you and gobble you up, because if your brand gets more successful, the wider your distribution will get. And then other people will sell your product for you. And then what you end up having is one little soundbite I'll share with you here is one very, very big beauty group. I'll not mention who they are to protect them. But one very, very big beauty group came to us around a year ago, and they had no idea. They have really high-end, lovely brands as well, face creams, that kind of thing. And they had no idea how much of their products were being sold online. We do, because we hold the biggest data pool outside of Amazon itself. So we knew it was about 500 million was being sold annually for their products. But that was being sold across 42,000 sellers. So those 42,000 sellers were undermining the price. They were confusing the message that the brand wanted to project out into the market. And ultimately, they were causing the brand to completely lose control. So what we always say is that the right approach, especially because there's so many really cool, small, fast-moving, fast-growing businesses here, what we always say is that if you try to dismiss Amazon, or if you try to, or any marketplace, and you don't really respect that channel, then ultimately it's gonna cost you.
And Lucy, like as an independent beauty brand, how are you navigating that balance between maintaining that authenticity and driving commercial success?
So that's really difficult to do. Hair Syrup is very much a founder-led brand, always has been. But as we get bigger, we sell to places like Boots now. So it is difficult to keep that community person sort of founder-centered approach, which is ultimately what engages your customers, especially if you're targeting Gen Z, millennials, like what we're targeting. That is how you capture the audience. So it's difficult. I try and keep very present across the socials so that people know, they don't lose that kind of grassroots sense to the brand. So yeah, I would just say, and we do a lot of live streaming and stuff so that they feel that they've got a nice, close, authentic connection with us.
Are you live streaming on a weekly basis, daily basis? Is it?
We try to go live at least 5 times a week. And yeah, we have a few different, like the girls who work. I mean, quite a few of the people who work at Hair Syrup, we've kind of, everyone knows us by name. And if we're walking places, people will be like, "Oh my God, you're that girl. I've seen you on." So yeah, it's you almost, I think, when you're building a brand that's catering to sort of audience we're catering to, you sort of completely unintentionally become a mini. People don't really buy from brands now; they're buying from people. So that's how it's worked for us. And yeah, people just love it. They like talking to us, and it helps keep trust in the products, basically.
Amazing. It's hard work, isn't it, with all these different channels, and especially like committing to going live that often, and then I bet you're doing it for a few hours at a time as well. Like there's so many moving parts that people need to consider. Chanel, brands are often balancing their own like e-com channels with retail partners and marketplaces. From your experience, what are like the key considerations when brands give up control of how their product appears online through partners or marketplaces?
I think the key is we don't give up control. We try and keep control as much as we can. There is a thing called competition law, so we can't control the prices the retailers set. But we cherry pick the retailers and the partners. We have a very strong relationship. That's my job, to keep the relationship with the retailers, to make sure, we aren't on discount pages. You don't see red slashes all over our PDPs. Everything is supplied by us, PDP assets, copy, and we have very flowery language, of course. And we have, we do have GWPs, the gift with purchases. Will we ever use the word free? No. Complimentary? Yes. But the way we do control, I guess, the heavy promotion and discounting is we have a really tight margin. You see a lot of mass products. I don't know if Lucy's in retailers, but the margin will be 50% plus. When you come to luxury, you're working with a 30 to 40% margin, which, the retailers, they don't want to give them less room to discount. And B, they know as a brand, we bring, an AOV of £350. So when we're bringing a client to them that spends that amount, they don't really want to lose us. So it's really a hand-in-hand play with them.
And Barney, what ways can integrating Amazon into like your e-com strategy enhance brand success?
Well, I think obviously Chanel's points around control are really, really important as well. I think it just goes back to that key point again of think about where the customers are going. So it's all well and good to have a really, really cool site, and it's good to sort of distribute to the likes of Cult Beauty and everything else. But a lot of especially, I mean, this is true with all retail categories, but especially in beauty, beauty brands are spending an absolute fortune creating amazing looking content and imagery and all the rest of it. But if that content isn't visible, because when a consumer will be casually looking on Amazon for a face cream, for example, or it's misrepresented because you've got some mom and pop shop that's got hold of your product somewhere, then it just hugely undermines the brand. So it's really important, I think, again, to make sure that you've got 100% control of the brand. Now, the key thing with this is a really little known fact, which works really well for us because we support in this. There's a piece of legislation in the EU called VBER, VBER, it stands for Vertical Block Exemption Regulation. And what that allows you to do is actually originally designed to deal with counterfeit products in the beauty space, using that as an example. But what that's designed to do is to allow you as a brand to nominate one seller to represent a particular SKU on the marketplace. And by doing that, you can remove all the other sellers and keep a really, really clean image and give you back that control. So I think, just making sure that you're ticking the boxes properly with Amazon and you don't treat it like a box ticking exercise, you actually embrace it properly. That will lift the entire retail ecosystem. So you don't get a situation where you can't run your promotions very effectively across other places like Cult Beauty or Look Fantastic, for example, because, Amazon are always scraping the web and undercutting you because they're trying to find the cheapest possible price. Amazon basically wants to sell as much of your product as possible, as cheaply as possible and as conveniently as possible. And they want to do that because they're a very consumer-focused market. They're a very consumer-focused organization. They don't really care about the brand. That's the harsh truth, is they don't care about you as a brand. What they want to do is create wide choice, a convenient place to buy at the cheapest possible price. So I think it's really important, if you understand that and you understand that 80% of people build their product awareness on Amazon, that's just what they do because it's super convenient, then it makes it even more important that you embrace Amazon, because that will help you if you're trying to create a luxury brand or you're trying to fast growth on sort of social channels, for example, like these ladies are.
Lucy, so for some of the brands in the room that are considering Amazon or other marketplaces or going into retail, what advice would you give them in terms of being able to maintain as much brand control as possible?
Agree with everything you've said. I've literally just signed with, I was the same about Amazon. I thought I was a bit like, oh, I don't know, I'm so community focused. But we're working with a really good agency, and what they explained to us was that it costs, customer acquisition is expensive, particularly through socials, which is obviously how we acquire most of ours. So a good way of doing it is basically, and we're probably losing about between 100 and 200k per month. That's what they're projecting that we're losing by not being there as a visible. So when someone types in rosemary oil or something generic, and then they can basically become acquainted with your brand just through a much more generic term, rather than having to go through your socials, your ads, which is obviously a more costly process. And then the chances are, if they buy it on Amazon, they're probably going to look on your Facebook, look on your Instagram anyway. And we had a lot of problems, literally recently, post Dragon's Den, of people reselling. And that can happen through your retailers as well, which we've experienced. I was really young when I started hair syrup. I was 21, obviously no experience in anything. So it can be really, really tempting when you've got big, obviously I stock with Boots, Superdrug, all of them now, but you can get really tempted in by big names when they say, oh, we'd love to work with you. But I've always been really good at standing firm on things like margin and making sure I'm not funding some ridiculous, like when they put these sales on of, buy one, get two free, there's just no way that I'm going to do that. So like you were saying, it's also remembering that it's a relationship rather than they're not doing you a favor. So yeah, I would just say I'm a difficult one though, because I want hair syrup everywhere. So we like to be quite exposed with it, but so we're not overly picky, and we're not a luxury brand, so we're not overly picky about who we go with. But the people who we do go with, it's still important that you've got a mutually beneficial, respectful relationship that's not as essentially where you're making money from, because you can launch with those people and you just make no money. So that's the ultimate goal, is to stay profitable.
And Chanel, just give us a bit of a brief overview on your company as well, and kind of about how you're pioneering transparency within the beauty industry.
Yeah, I have a tech startup on the side. I don't know if anybody knows what Rotten Tomatoes does for film, but we're trying to do that with beauty. With the rise of influencer, there's a lot of noise, sponsored content, and the consumer path to purchase is now 17 to 24 points. And that's what we're all doing in this room, right? To get people to convert at checkout. But the consumer journey, especially for beauty, is tough. And consumers are spending up to an hour researching online, sifting through sponsored content, be that on TikTok, through paid media. And I spotted a gap where actually they're just craving authenticity. And that is why TikTok is TikTok and why it's so popular, because you just want what is real and what is working. So my platform, we aggregate all of the industry and expert reviews. We use generative AI to basically remove any bias out of our scores. And for consumers, it's a urine spacing K. You don't know whether to buy a hair syrup or not. We'll pull up the scores and make sure that's an accurate representation of whether the product is good or not. And then on the brand side, we basically syndicate through our scores in order to convert at checkout. So we're really looking at consumers at the bottom of the funnel that are deciding whether to purchase or not.
And super quickly, just to kind of wrap us up, can you give us some like essential elements that a brand should prioritize to make sure they're having success on Amazon?
Yeah, I think again, just having the correct strategy is really important. So making sure that I guess the key thing is making sure that you're in control first of all. So the first thing is to make sure that you're removing any sellers that are undermining the brand, and that would be the approach around Viba. We work with a company called Voorhees, who are a big e-control business, well, the biggest in the world e-control business. They can close down unauthorized sellers, and then outside of that, obviously, within Pattern, we're very much a data and tech-led business, so we have lots of really cool patented AI tools as well. So making sure that your images, first of all, are converting at the highest possible level within the category. And that's based on the data in the category that we can see. And obviously the same for the content and your sort of advertising strategy and everything else as well. But yeah, I guess the most fundamental message I'd say there is respecting Amazon rather than treating it like a box ticking exercise, actually fully embracing it, because that'll help you across all of your retail and you'll be far more successful that way.
And thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca.